Well, guess what? In the process of trying to figure out what was causing the speaker rattle, I noticed that the wires on the dial light were really brittle. I mean, I touched them with my hand and it was like that old Philco wiring almost. The outside insulation just crumbled right off. I had bare wire everywhere on that thing, so I went ahead and replaced the wires in the dial light. And of course, in order to replace it, the wiring itself, I had to remove the two wires from the socket where they were soldered on. And one of them was soldered right here on this socket, which is the 35Z5, I believe it is. And the other one is over here and is connected to this pin over here. Well, I'll tell you what. In the process of desoldering all these wires in this cramped up space, I broke the pin. Here it is right here. If I can get it up there in the camera. There it is there. I broke the pin off the tube. Let me show you where it goes. Actually, I'm kind of glad this happened in a way. I'll tell you why. I get a big thrill at things that break, and then I got to sit here and it's like a big puzzle. I got to sit here and figure out what I'm going to do about it. See that pin right there went down. If I can get a hold of this pair of needle nose a little better to show you what I'm trying to do here. Come on, okay, I think this will do it. This pin went down in that slot down there. See that slot right there? And it was just like this one right here. Okay, boy, that one right there. Anyway, she popped right off flush. Oh, well, what do we do about that? Let me zoom in there. Should I give you a better shot? Look at there. What do we do about that? You know, this may happen to you someday, and you're going to sit there and say, "Oh, I don't believe it. Well, how did this happen? How could this possibly have happened?" Well, it's one of the pitfalls you have when you have small chassis. It's why I pretty much avoid AA5 radios, because the chassis is too cramped, too small, and I just don't like messing with these sorts of things. I prefer the big open chassis, you know, of the 1930 radios. That's just the way I am. But a lot of other people, they love these things. Well, that's fine and dandy. I sure don't. But we have the problem. What are we going to do about it? What do we do about it? Well, we fix it. I've repeated this 1,000 times. Well, how do you fix something that's broken off like that, completely flush, it's not worth a crap anymore? How do you fix that? Well, you really don't fix that. Okay, what we have to do, we have three options here. We have three options. We replace the entire socket to pull it out, find another socket, pull it out, and put it in. Not going to happen. I am not going to spend money on another socket and put all my time and energy in replacing that thing. Forget it. The second thing we do is we work around. We try to do a workaround. All right, and the workaround is what? Well, I'm going to show you that in a few minutes, one of our options. So we either replace the socket, we have a workaround, or we just forget the whole thing, number 3, and don't even mess with it anymore. Call it shot, that's done, it's over with. Give it to somebody else to fix. I don't like giving anything to anybody else to fix. So we are going to do a workaround. Now you'll notice it right here on this tab. Now this is pin. Let's go to our tube's key right here. The key to our tube is right underneath that resistor, and it's between these two pins. All right, so this is pin 1. Pin 2 on this rectifier is where the pin broke off. But you'll notice that pin 1, if I get this thing out of the way and this thing out of the way, pin 1 has nothing soldered to it. That's going to play a very important part, if all goes well, in our workaround. Let's take a look at the tube on Frank's Electron Tubes website and see what pin 1 is. Alright, here's your 35Z5. Let's scroll over and take a look at pin 1. Remember, this is Frank's Electron Tubes. Pin 1 is down here at the bottom. right there. And I don't know if you can see my cursor mark anywhere, right there. NC, no connection. Pin 1 is connected to nothing. That's why the tab that I was flipping with my finger had nothing on it. It's just empty. And what we need to do is fix pin number 2. Now pin number 2 is the one that broke, and it's connected to the heater, one side of the heater. And there's wires that do come into it. So what I'm going to try to do is put a jumper from pin 1, the tab on pin 1 that I was flipping with my finger, over to pin 2. And then I'm going to hook all the wires up to here. And that should be the same thing. Remember I told you a while back when we went through the last series, it's the same electrical point, okay? So if I jump from here to here, same electrical point, and we'll go ahead and have her functioning again, I hope. Well, let's find out exactly how I'm going to hook that up on the tube. Alright, what I'm going to do, if all goes well, get down here where you can see what I'm doing. You'll notice the tab, this tab here has 2 holes in it, the one that broke off. And so does this tab down here that I'm going to be using. This is pin 1, if I can get it in the camera. There you can see the 2 holes right there on pin 1, right there. Okay, and there's 2 holes. I'm going to jumper the bottom hole and solder it to the back of the tube pin number 2, if I can figure out how to get all this done in the camera where you can see it. I'm going to solder it to that flat spot on that tube pin, all right, and then run the jumper wire over to the bottom hole on this pin. Then I'm going to hook all the rest of the wires up to the top hole on that pin, and that'll be exactly the same as hooking it here. The only problem is, can I solder a wire to the back of this thing? Soldering it to the tab won't be any problem. Soldering it to here could present a problem. But we'll give it the old college try, okay? Now there is one more way I could do this. Pin 1 on the tube is not used, remember? I could just take the old dikes here, and I could just cut that tube pin right off. Just chop it right off. It's not needed. It's not connected to anything inside the tube glass. And by doing so, I wouldn't have to worry. I could use the entire surface of this pin right here. I could wrap the wire completely around there. Make sure I have a good solid bond. I'm going to have to think about that. I might be able to just go ahead and wrap the wire around, solder it up, and still have a good solid bond, and still do it without cutting the tube pin. So I think what I'll do is try that first. If it doesn't work and the tube pin won't go down through because maybe some solder got up inside there, not a problem. I will go ahead and cut the tube pin off. Not needed. So let's get cranked up on this. You know, I remember when I first started out watching YouTube videos of people repairing radios that were broken. One of the guys I watched the most was, of course, Rick McWhorter, All American 5 Radio. He would come up with some of the greatest fixes. I used to sit there and watch him. I said, now, how is he going to fix that? How is he going to do that? And he would just do that, and I'd say, no, why didn't I think of that, you know? I used to really enjoy watching him and others, you know, get around a problem like this that actually, you know, most people would say, oh, I'm just going to have to change the socket out. Not always the case, all right? Now, if this was a high-dollar radio, yeah, I might go ahead and change that socket out, but this is not a high-dollar radio. Maybe it's worth 20 bucks. I'm not going to spend, $5 or $6 on another socket somewhere or cannibalize another radio and ruin it just to get something for that pin. Anyway, this is the fun part I used to really enjoy. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use solid wire, and I'm going to strip it back. See if I can get a little focus here for you. I'm going to go ahead and strip it back, and then I'm going to take my little needle nose. I'm going to form it into the shape around the outside of that pin right there. Then I need to determine how much length I need to get over here. I may or may not solder it at the bottom hole. I may just wrap this thing around the very bottom of this thing and solder it that way, but that's getting pretty close to the socket. I'll see, and I'm not even 100% sure I'm going to need the insulation on it. I might be able to just put a bare jumper wire in there, not a problem. Easier to work with that way. Well, that should do it as far as positioning goes. All I have to do now is heat up the old soldering iron and, you know, lay a little solder all the way. I don't know if I'm going to lay it all the way around, but if I can get this pencil down there to where I'm pointing to. Yeah, I just got it kind of wrapped around there. I'm going to lay a little bit of solder in there until it you know, it's fastened real good. On the right hand side over here, I'm not going to do any soldering until I get all the wires completely hooked up to that pin. Then I'll just solder them all at once. Let's get her soldered. Well, there it is. The the first part that is wrapped around the pin and soldered in place. You don't need a ton of solder to do this, and the hole is nice and clear still. Well, that worked out pretty good. Let's go over here and see if we can finish up the rest. Get all the rest of those wires up to include the dial light wire all hooked in there. Then we have to go over and work on the black wire, that one right there, which was the other side of the dial lamp. That one right there. Oh man, this is going to be another problem, you know. I'll probably wind up breaking that one off too. Won't that be sweet, huh? The right half is done. Everything is soldered to that pin right there. This white wire is the dial light wire. Now we're going to go ahead and take this one over here, the black wire, and I'm going to solder it there. But I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take a chance and, you know, unsolder all this stuff like I did over here and maybe have another broken socket pin terminal. I can't afford that. We don't have any more loose ones that I can see. So what I'm going to do is, this is the old wire right here. This is the old stub. What I'm going to do is go ahead and just lop that thing off real close to the terminal. Then take this wire coming from the dial light and wrap it around that stub right there, much like a coil, and solder it in place and do it that way. That's the safe way of doing it. Alright guys, that's it. The only thing I have left to do now is clean the solder joint up with the old alcohol and brush, which we always do. Always do that, okay? Clean up your solder joints. Everything looks pretty good right there. It's not a sloppy looking job. It's not the greatest job in the world either, but it saved me from having to change out an entire tube socket. Now, of course, you know, they always say the taste is in the pudding, or the proof is in the pudding. So let's go ahead and put the old tube back in, plug it in, and see if we get any noise. If we do, then we had a successful fix. And then we'll move on to the speaker rattle situation again, and then we'll end up this video by repairing that dial slider indicator thing, hopefully. Well, like I figured, you know, these pins are designed to expand. They have a slit down one side. Now they wrap around, they got a little slit there. Anyway, they're designed, you know, to expand open, you know, when you push the pin down through. Unfortunately, pin 1 is unable to do that now because I have solder wrapped around it. Where the heck is it? I can't even see it anymore. Yeah, we got the old solder wrapped around it down in here. If I can get a focus. And it can't expand. Okay, see that right there? Top of that resistor. It can't expand. Got a little solder down in there. I'm going to try to get that blob of solder out of there. You can see it right there at the top. And if I can't, you know, I'm just going to have to snip off pin 1 on the tube. Not a big deal. But I prefer to get that solder out and get it to where it works, because if this radio quits, you know, in the future, somebody's going to have to replace a tube, maybe. And it'll be this tube, and it won't go down through the hole. And they'll be you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. Why won't that tube go down in there? So I'm going to try to avoid that for the future. If I can't do it, I'll just cut the pin off. No problem. Alright, let's see what happens. Let's see if she's going to work. Well, the dial light came on. Now, incidentally, that flash you saw is normal. Now, that bulb will get brighter as the filaments on the tubes light up. Hopefully, I'll be able to explain that to you in the next video, why that tube flashed and then got... It's almost like a dim bulb tester, isn't it? See what happens. Hopefully I got, well, at least the old filament's lighting up. Check that out. Well, we're hearing some noise. I don't know what we'll get tonight, but I got fluorescent lights all over the top of me here. I use the big dial to change channels. Turn up the volume, that might help, huh? Alright, she's working. Of course, we still have our rattly speaker, which I'm going to be working on. That's why I have this signal tracer here. We're just not going to have time to do it today. Hear that speaker?
You can finally get health insurance that's right for you, even if you have pre-existing conditions or no insurance at all.
Okay, anyway, that's how we did a workaround on the socket when you have a broken pin. Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I wanted you to see that, okay? And it was fun, right? It was fun breaking it. It was fun trying to figure out how to fix it. It was fun actually fixing it. And it was fun showing you all how to do it. That was fun, right? All right, we're not going to get around to fixing the dial either, that broken dial needle. Sorry about that. We will do that right off the bat in the next video. Hope you all learned something from this. Hope you all had fun. I had lots of fun. So until next time, this is John.